Today, we're taking this map submitted by a viewer, sprinkling some love over the top of it, and turning it into this masterpiece. Hold on, I'm not showing you the full map now. Then you won't watch the video. Welcome to the new show on LvL Up Design. Map Doctor! Map Doctor. Amahari submitted this map and I asked them if I could redesign it as well, because I wanted to show you guys and Amahari just how awesome this can look. So, starting with the layout, firstly, this map is huge. It's very spaced out with lots of large open spaces, so we're just going to bring this in a little bit to make it look a bit more proportional. You want to try and avoid large open spaces in your interior maps because it looks unnatural to the human eye, so keeping their original design in mind, I ended up with this. With that all done, it's time to take it to the drawing board. And by that I mean Photoshop. When I'm designing a map, I like to sketch it out first using nothing but outlines. No shading, just black outlines. Outlining the walls, the floors, and then going into a bit more detail, placing in some furniture, some stairs, some clutter. By doing this first, it means I can mess around and alter the placement of objects in the concept phase, and I don't really have to be too cautious about how I'm designing. While I'm doing the design and the line art, I also get a lot of inspiration as I'm designing each area that helps me out when it comes time to start dropping in textures and manipulating the object sprites. Another benefit to doing the line art like this, if you're not designing a full level from start to finish and you're just grey boxing, this is a really great way to just prototype out your levels and get something in the engine. This is the design we have at the end of it. Now it's time to start texturing the map, starting with the carpets. Now normally I wouldn't use this blue carpet as a default, but I did want to keep in the theme of the map that Amahari submitted, so I did decide to actually keep the blue carpet and just see what I could do with it. I copied and pasted a tileable section and then just applied that to the areas that needed the carpet. For the railings at the top of the staircase, I actually decided to go with the sci-fi tile set, and I do this a couple of times, just because the sci-fi tile set actually has some things that can cross over, even in a medieval tile, and I really thought the railings for the stairs in the sci-fi tile set really fit in place here, so that's why I decided to go with that option. One of the things I really like to do with stairs in RPG Maker is have the carpet run down along them, and it's quite easy. I'll just do a carpet tile and then shade the bits where the stairs are, but I think it just makes the map look a bit more dynamic, and it just gives it a bit more character with the carpet cascading down the stairs. Now, one of the issues I found with the original map was the very front was just way too open, so what I decided to do was next to the stairs, have these two little sort of court areas, like courtyard areas, and on the left-hand side I placed a table and some couches, again both from the sci-fi tile set, because I think it really works in this instance. And then I just filled out the carpet in the rest of that area. At the entrance to the castle, I made a little sort of reception area where a player would have to check in before continuing further into the castle. You'd be able to add an event there where the character has to check in with the receptionist and then a guard would move out of the way, but it just adds a bit more character to the space. In that nook to the right of the stairs that I created earlier, I just decided to make a sort of tea table area. I imagine this front is sort of like a waiting area for anyone visiting the castle, so just by adding like a fruit platter, some cups of tea, I thought really filled out the area. I quickly copied and pasted the carpet over to the other side of the map just because it's symmetrical, and then got to work on filling out some of the walls, as well as in the main hall, just the wall at the very back at the top of the stairs, just filling it with some clutter, things like a world map, some swords, maybe even some banners for the castle, but just sort of completing this front area. Moving over to the left towards the library, I added in some stairs as well as another cascading carpet going down the stairs, just down into the entrance of that library. Moving into the library, I decided to change the wall tile away from the painted blue wall that's used in the front, just because I wanted to give this area a different feel to it. I decided to go with a wooden floor tile for the library because this whole room is going to be covered in darker colours, the wooden bookcases, desks and chairs. I felt like this tile would work really well here. After that, it was just time to simply copy and paste some assets over from the RTP files, things like bookcases, desks, chairs, and after that just fill out the room with some clutter, some of the clutter being scrolls, books, letters, candles. Now, I was planning on only using RTP tiles for this series, but when it came time to filling out the side hallways, even though I was looking through the default assets, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had the perfect floor tile in my own tile set that I'm developing at the moment. I haven't announced the tile set yet, but ultimately I did decide to use 2 of my tiles from my tile set, and I'm sure you'll agree that this tile fits perfectly into the hallway. Again, I used one of my own tiles for the tiled floor when you first enter the altar room. I made a bridge across the water because that's what it was in the original map. One of the things I like doing is placing down carpets over the top of other floor tiles just to give it more of a rug-like feel to it. I kept the altar room quite simple and quite true to the original design, only really spicing it up with a different altar and some different other tiles. You'll notice that I don't colour in the water area of this map, and that's because later when I export the file, I'm going to be making it a transparent area so we can use the water tiles in Engine and take advantage of the animations that come with it. I finished tiling the hallway at the top, and then I decided to make the top opening alcove sort of area more of like an entertainment space, a nice warm cozy area with a few couches, a fireplace, maybe a book place. Again, here I'm doing that thing where I'm putting a carpet over the top of another tiled floor just to give it more of a rug-like feel. When it came time to add in the couch, I decided that I wanted to recolor the tile just because I wanted it to fit in more with the cozy feeling of the area that I was creating. Because there was going to be some tables and bookshelves and a fireplace, I decided to recolor this sprite a sort of brown leatherish color. It fits in a lot better with the space than the black couch did. I'll time-lapse through the rest of this room, and then afterwards we're just going to do a small before and after of the rooms we've done so far. There's going to be a before and after at the end of the video too, which shows all of the lighting and how good it looks, but just so you guys don't get bored, enjoy this time-lapse and we'll show you what we've done so far. I started filling out the floor of the dining area with a wooden tile, and one of the big changes I did make to this map was a connection between the kitchen and the dining room with a small storeroom in between, so that the cooks could quite easily from the kitchen bring food into the dining room. The storeroom was just an area where they could be storing extra sort of food, utensils, all that sort of stuff, as well as just along that hallway a slight wash-up room for any of the sort of dishes, just to add a bit more character to this side of the castle and just to show that, you know, its specific use was this. One change that I did make to the dining room was in the traditional design there was one big table that everyone was eating at. What I did here was create one big dining table with a sort of head table at the front, which is traditionally what you'd see in settings where the king wouldn't eat at the same table as his guests, but he'd have a head table towards the front of the room. In the original design, this office above the main hallway was able to be entered from both sides. I changed that so it could only be entered from the left-hand side, and you'll see here I'm doing that thing again where I'm using a carpet over the top of tiles as more of a rug. Then it was simply just copying and pasting some tiles over from the RTP into this office, and then filling it out. Finishing up the design was going into the castle kitchen where I used a multicoloured floor tile that you'd usually see in kitchens. Then I grabbed the bench and countertops and just manipulated the pixels to wrap that table around the side of the room. Then in the middle of the room I added 2 more stone tabletops and filled them with clutter such as food, utensils, just to make it look like an active kitchen. The entire process up to this point has taken about 5.5 hours. When it comes to making a good map, 5.5 hours isn't really that much time when it comes to quality. That's without all the lighting, so now let's move on to the lighting. When it comes to starting lighting, I like to cover the map in a half opacity black colour and then go through and erase that colour when I'm adding things like light from candles or from windows. Later on I'll be coming back and adding coloured lighting such as white light from the windows and orange light from the candles. I shift over to the dining room to make some light coming from some window panes, and quite quickly I go right back over to the library and start adding in some coloured light. That's those orange lights from the candles, playing around with the opacity a bit, as well as the white light coming from the windows. And now this is an Unreal Engine 5, so when justifying the light for the hallways and the majority of the map, it doesn't really need a light source, we just need it to be visible to the player with some dynamic shadows here and there. Over in the dining room area I add some coloured light, and that's just the white light that's coming through the windows, creating beams of light into the dining room. All the while I am still going around the map and adjusting how much shadow is in what area as I go. When it came time to shading the office, I just decided to copy and paste some candle assets in there, just to give it a more dynamic feel when it does come time to lighting it, as you see that I'm doing now. I'm adding in some candle lights as well as just the general lack of shadow. This is also quite a large map as well. It's not typically the type of map I'd be working on in my Map Doctor series, but at least for the first episode, I wanted to show you just what could be done in a large map like this with parallax mapping and lighting. Over here in the altar room you can see I add some white light from the windows, as well as some orange light spreading from the altar candles. The storage area I keep quite dark, only really being lit up by the light of the candles and some light coming in from the windows in the washrooms. Same with the kitchen, I mainly make the light in here just coming from the windows. And lastly, to touch on the lighting, I'm just going around now and adding a highlight to any objects and bits of furniture, which would have light coming from the candles landing on it. I'm just adding orange highlights around those objects. The final thing that needs to be done in terms of parallax mapping is setting aside the different layers, one for being on top of the player, that's your shadows or any objects that the player can walk behind, and one that the players are going to be able to walk on top of. So for most of the floors and most of the objects, they're just going to be on the bottom layer, that's going to be the layer that the character's walking in front of. But for some of the objects where the player goes behind it, that's where we need to just separate them and have them appear in the game engine as a separate image to appear over the top of the player. And before I show you the map, if you guys are interested in having your own map on one of these videos, then make sure you submit it to lvlupdes@gmail.com, and in your subject line just say Map Doctor. I'm accepting submissions for smaller interior maps, just to show you how valuable it can be to add some parallax mapping and lighting to your game. Now just lastly, we've already imported everything in and parallaxed it into the game. Lastly, I'm just going to add a bit of dynamic sound. So over here you can see this little water area. What I'm going to do is make the sound of drips appear as we get closer and disappear as we get further away. So firstly, I'm going to double click in here. I'm going to make this a below character priority, and it's going to trigger on player touch. And what we're going to do is go over onto the second event page and go play BGS. I'm going to select drips. I'm going to set it at 50%. Hit apply. We're just going to copy that 3 times. You should be able to do this with region IDs, but I've been yet to be able to find a plugin which can do that. So if anyone knows of a plugin where you can play sound based on region ID, let me know. Anyway, moving back over, this event will play drips at 50% volume. As we move away from this room, we want the drips to subside. So over here, going to copy that event, and inside of it, where it says play drips BGS, we're going to right click and edit it, and instead of 50%, we're going to bring that down to 20%. We're just going to copy this and paste it all around here. And then lastly, a bit further away, we're going to go in, and we're going to make a new event, and it's going to be fade out BGS over the course of, let's say, 5 seconds. Hit apply, and then copy that around the area as well. We're going to do the same thing over here with this fireplace. Copy and paste that along, and again, let me know if any of you guys know of a plugin which allows you to use the region IDs for sound, as opposed to having to do it with events. Also, if you guys are liking this video, don't forget to like the video, like with your da-ting, whatever. Of course, I am going to be packing up these files and sending them over to Amahari so they can use it in their game. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. Catch.